This is one of the surahs that Allah gave to the Prophet ﷺ when he was in Medina. And the life of the Prophet ﷺ is very different in Medina than it is in Mecca. And so I'm going to highlight some things that we have to keep in mind when we read a surah like this. What is going on with the Prophet of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Because Allah tells us, وَقُرْآنًا فَرَقْنَاهُ لِتَقْرَأَهُ عَلَى النَّاسِ عَلَى مُكْثٍ وَنَزَّلْنَاهُ تَنزِيلًا. In Surah Al-Isra, Allah says that Allah sent the Quran, He broke it apart, so He didn't send the whole thing down at once, right? He sent it down little by little on just the right occasion. So a situation was developing and it reached a pretty intense climax, and human beings don't know what to do. Now Allah will reveal ayat to solve the issue, or to give release from Him so that things can be resolved. That's ala mukthin wa nazzalnahu tanzila. So with that in mind, it's kind of important to know what's going on in the Prophet's life at the time. What's going on in Medina at the time when this surah is coming down. And I'm going to come at that from a very particular perspective. So before I go to the Prophet's life, I'm just going to speak to the men here for a moment. All due respect to my daughters, my sisters, my mothers that are here in the audience. There's quite a bit about you coming in the surah, so bear with me. You see, you have a lot of things to juggle, my friend. You have a family to take care of. Those of you that are married and heads of households, you have a family to take care of. You have your wife to take care of. You have your children to take care of. Depending on what age your children are, you have different kinds of challenges. Those of you that have teenage kids, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, right? You have temperaments to take care of, boys and girls, completely different kind of, not disaster, trial, ni'mah, I meant ni'mah. And then you have your parents to take care of, astaghfirullah al-azim. You have your in-laws to deal with. You have work. You have friends, you have community, you have like lots of different things pulling at you. And on top of that, you have the bills, and you have the tire pressure on the car, and you have did the garbage go out for recycling, or did you put the wrong thing out outside? Where's the car parked? Taxes, astaghfirullah al-azim. There's a lot of things going on in your head. And you're not running a country, you're running a household. And you're barely taking care of yourself, and you don't even know where the day goes. The day just disappears. Between all of these responsibilities, by the time you hit the bed, you pass out, like you're in a coma, you can't be talked to. Now I want you to put this in perspective a little bit. We're cool? Oh no, totally. Oh, they can't hear me? Yeah, I purposely speak low so they have to go like that. It makes sure they pay attention more. I realized something. Muslims are so used to hearing loud voices, they don't listen. So I purposely use a low voice. So anyway, so the thing is, when we think about what the Prophet's doing, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he's not running one household. He has multiple spouses. So he's running multiple households. So whatever responsibilities you're carrying, multiply that by a few. On top of that, he is now the governor of an entire city. So as a governor, he has to deal with economic issues, social issues, political issues. There are different religious communities. There's also the fragile union between the Muhajirun and the Ansar. They have their cultural differences. They have their background differences. There are also those that are coming new into Islam. Oh, of course, there's the Meccans who would like to kill all of us, who are still waiting for an opportunity to do so. Then there are tribes inside Medina that are trying to sabotage Medina from the inside and end this project before it even begins. There are even some secret assassination attempts of the Prophet ﷺ that are cooking up at the time. All kinds of things are going on, and as the governor, he has to watch out for all of this. And there are those inside of his own camp, among those who claim to believe, that are actually trying to destroy him from the inside, even though they sit in the first row in the prayer. So there's the gang of hypocrites that disguise themselves as friends, but they're the enemy. So this is pretty heavy stuff that he's got to deal with all at the same time. On top of that, there is, now that you have that, he is the wa'il and the imam and the counselor and the advisor for the entire ummah that's alive at the time. So if anybody has an issue with their dad, guess who they go talk to? Anybody has an issue with their wife, who do they come talk to? Anybody's got an issue that, I don't understand this, or, tell me what I should do, or I just need some inspiration. Give me some motivation. Now imagine a CEO of a company right? An important job, CEO of a company. He's got his executive office, and the security guard from the first floor, this guy's on the 90th floor. He takes the elevator to the 90th floor and says, "Hey, boss, just give me some motivation. I just want to hear something inspiring. Can you tell me? Just getting a little bored at my job, and I just feel like you should just give me some. Tell me things are going to be okay." What's the CEO going to do? You're fired. Get out of here. My job is to motivate you. Where am I and where are you? Know your place. But what is Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam doing? You see so many narrations, so many accounts of people just coming up to him and saying, "Tell me something. Tell me something I can do." Or who should I treat the best? Who should I treat the best? And these are not things that Allah hasn't already talked about. Allah has already said, وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. It's already revealed in the Quran. And teachers, by the way, though some of you are in the teaching profession. Can I see how many people are in the teaching profession? I don't know. Wow, we need more teachers in this community, let me tell you right now. But if you're in the teaching profession and you've already taught something over and over again, and then a student comes to you and says, "Hey, so I was wondering, could you teach me the alif ba again? Could we go over that? The ba is a little confusing. The alif I got. The ba is a little confusing." As a teacher, what are you going to do? Go read the book. Go review. You can't be serious. Sometimes people ask such basic questions that it offends the teacher. Like, where have you been? What coma were you in? Were you among the Ashabul Kahf? You just woke up? Like, where were you? But people come to the Prophet ﷺ in the middle of him dealing with the crisis of being a governor, in the middle of the looming threat of war that's going to happen over 3 times in Medina, between Mecca and Medina, in the middle of the economic crisis, in the middle of the spiritual crisis of the munafiqun. He's dealing with people that are coming and talking to him on an individual basis, and there's no time limit on it. They can come to him anytime, to the point where Allah had to reveal, don't just show up at his house, and don't just stick around, you need to leave. Surah An-Nur had to come and teach the Sahaba, he's too nice to tell you, I think it's about time you should leave, it's only 3 a.m. You need to go on your own. Don't just sit there. So Allah, he wouldn't say it, because he's just constantly serving. And on top of all of that, he is dealing with multiple wives. Now that sounds like an attack on Islam. He had multiple spouses. But let me tell you something. Each spouse had a temperament, has a different personality. And he's trying to be the best husband he can be to all of them. In fact, he makes the claim to us explicitly that he is the best to his family among all of us. So he's being the best husband to all of them. And on top of that, he needs to make sure that he's being fair to all of them, so he's giving equal amounts of time. Now, just if you just take a step back and imagine this whole thing for a moment, is this an easy amount of things to juggle? It seems like the Prophet ﷺ has an impossible amount of pressure and burden on him. When Allah says, "Inna sanuki alayka qawlan thaqila," it's some of us can just, we can go to work, we can come back and turn on the PS5 that we made so much dua to acquire. Right? And then it's okay. Then we can, and at the end of it all, we can say, "Man, life's tough. I got work in the morning." There's no time, there's no off switch for this man. And by the way, when the night happens, finally everybody's asleep. What's Allah's commandment to him? More than a third of the night, he has to make qiyam to Allah. More than a third. It's optional for us. It's mandatory for him. It's been revealed to him as mandatory. So his days and nights are done. He's to be exhausted completely. Now, I set the scene for you for a reason. I wanted to talk to you about a few things in Surah Al-Tahrim, right? Surah Al-Tahrim is really interesting. There's something in short surahs that are a few pages. There's something, the concept. I won't give you the English terminology, I'll give you English terms. So it's easy for you to kind of connect with it. They're called anchors. Anchors. You know an anchor in a ship? When you drop an anchor? So there's a similar kind of phrase used multiple times in the same surah. And that's kind of like an anchor is dropped here and another anchor is dropped here. And there's a mental connection made between the two. So this is only 12 ayat, yes? In the beginning, Allah says, Ya ayyuhan nabi. Prophet. Allah addresses the surah with, not talking to us, not saying, Ya ayyuhan ladhina amanu. He's talking directly to his Prophet, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So we're going to learn something about a conversation that's happening between Allah and the Prophet. Fine. How many ayat did I say? I forgot. Oh, very good. MashaAllah. Somebody's listening. Very good. Now in the 9th ayah, almost done. The surah's almost done. We're in ayah number 9. Ya ayyuhan nabi again. So the Ya Ayyuhan Nabi happens twice. Okay. Now let me tell you, I told you he's dealing with lots of things. One of those things possibly, one of those things is sometimes one of his wives is upset. She's in a bad mood. Okay? One of his wives is in a bad mood. There's some, let's just call it drama at home. There's some drama at home. That's one issue. Here's another issue. There are people on the outside that are trying to kill all the Muslims, and there are people on the inside pretending to be Muslim that are engaging in spying and espionage, working with the outside enemy to open the floodgates and create a bloodbath in Medina. Okay? Two issues. What was the first issue that I mentioned? Drama at home. Maybe one of the wives is upset. That's one issue. What's the other issue? Certain death. The death of the entire ummah. Which one do you think is like an emergency situation? What do you think? Any guess? The home problem. We'll talk later. I think we have some conversations to have separately. You would imagine that Allah will give instruction to the Prophet ﷺ in this surah about dealing with the looming threat of the munafiqeen, the hypocrites, the spies, and the kuffar. And he does. He says, Ya ayyuhan nabi, jahid al-kuffara wal-munafiqina waghlub alayhim wa ma'wahum jahannam wa bi'sal masir. You need to struggle against both of those groups. Show no mercy to either group. You need to engage with them directly. So he's giving him a mandate to deal with the enemy inside and outside. But that happens in ayah number 9. The surah is almost over. The surah is almost done. And actually after 9 is just a history lesson. It's not even about the Prophet ﷺ. It's about Lut alayhi salam and other prophets. But what happened in ayah number 1? Where did the surah begin? And what happened until ayah number 9? Most of the surah. Ya ayyuhan nabi. لِمَ تُحَرِّمُ مَا أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ لَكَ. Why do you make, the Prophet is being told, listen to this. Why do you make halal, or why do you make haram what Allah made halal for you? Why are you making something wrong for you, impermissible for you, that Allah said is okay? تَبْتَغِي مَرْضَاتَ أَزْوَاجِكَ. You're doing so to make some of your spouses happy? وَاللَّهُ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. And Allah is extremely forgiving, always loving and caring. So the opening subject was this really strange expression. Usually Allah criticized the people that came before us. They took what was haram and they made it halal. You know that, right? They took something that was haram and they made it halal. But the Prophet is not being told, why would you take something haram and make it halal? What is the Prophet being told? Why are you taking something halal and making it haram? And then Allah even added a reason. Why would you do such a thing? Why would he do it? To make your wives content. I want to put all of this in perspective for you. As the Prophet ﷺ is engaged in all kinds of heavy burdens, there's only one place he can find peace of mind. Allah says that the purpose of marriage is لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. So you can find calm and peace and harmony in your spouses. That's the goal of marriage according to Allah Himself. That's the purpose. Fine. When the Prophet ﷺ has calm in his personal life, in his married life, that calm gives him the ability, the fuel to deal with much bigger responsibilities outside. The kind of thing that you will watch on the news. The kind of thing that he has to deal with is outside. The big stuff, the stuff that historians will record. The historians will not record, oh, he had drama at home one day. The historians will record the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, the Hijrah, the Fath Makkah. Historians will record major incidents, major attempts, newsworthy stuff, not these small things. What is Allah teaching us in this remarkable surah? That what goes on at home is so fundamentally important, because unless you deal with it, you cannot be in a position to deal with what is happening outside. So for 8 ayat, Allah is only talking about the Prophet ﷺ, his wives, us, and our families. That's all he's talking about. And then gets to the Prophet and says, by the way, now that is dealt with, now you can deal with the big stuff. Now you can deal with big stuff. Sometimes I talk about family issues and people say, why aren't you talking about the crisis of the ummah? I was like, because it's ayah number 9, bro. There's 8 ayat before. This is a crisis. This is in fact a crisis. Now I'm going to summarize some of the narrations that surround this story, but even if you don't know those narrations, let's pay attention to what Allah is actually saying. Now the only thing I've established so far in this conversation is, okay, 2 times the Prophet is addressed directly. The first time, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is being told, don't make something haram for himself that Allah has made halal. So we got to dig into that a little bit. And then later on, to deal with the hypocrites and the kuffar. Fine. All right, so let's go to this first thing again. You see, Allah has made lots and lots and lots of things halal. And وَيُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْخَبَائِثِ, and only filthy things He said stay away from. So the things that are haram are actually very few. And most of what Allah has made on this earth, هُوَ الَّذِي خَلَقَ لَكُم مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا. He opened up the door of halal. Muslims start thinking most things are haram until proven halal. But actually, the way Allah made the world, the few things that He stopped us from are a handful of things. Stay away from this filth, this filth, this filth, and this filth. The rest of this world was made good and pure for you. Okay? When you go towards the haram, since the time of Adam alayhi salam, he was given one tree that's haram, yes? When you go towards haram, you should feel bad. Because you went towards the one thing Allah told you not to. You should feel guilty. You should feel ashamed. You should feel regret. I should feel in my heart, man, I messed up, I better not do that again. I should turn to Allah and say, Ya Allah, that is my failure. I slipped up. I don't know how I lost control, but I will not allow myself to do that again. Please forgive me. I turn to you sincerely. That kind of guilt you should feel if you crossed Allah's line of haram. But people are weird. Relationships are weird. And the closest relationship the Prophet ﷺ has in Medina is actually his wives. He doesn't have his parents with him. He doesn't have siblings with him. He doesn't have uncles with him, except for at a distance. The closest people to him in his life are who? His wives. For you, it may not be. It might be the farthest person from you is your wife. I hope not, but I'm just saying. But you have other people that are very closely connected to you. When you walk inside your home, who's there? Maybe your kids are there. Maybe your parents are there. Maybe your siblings are there. Maybe your spouse is there. These are the people that are the closest to you, yes? Now, those people in our life, sometimes those relationships are supposed to be relationships of love and respect and safety and understanding and forgiveness. These are the things that make any relationship work, whether it's between parents and children, whether it's between siblings, whether it's between spouses. It's the same basic things. If a parent does not feel respected by the child, they're going to be hurt. If a child feels humiliated by the parents all the time, that's not going to work either. We need these things as human beings. We need to feel safe. We need to feel respected. We need to feel loved. There's some basic things that we need. But unfortunately, we use the word love a lot in relationships. Like even after you get slapped up by your dad, he'll say, I love you. You know I love you, right? Even after like a huge shaming session, right? Your husband will shame you, or the wife will shame you and say the most hurtful things, and then say at the end, you know, no one loves you like I do, right? Because I mean, look at you. Who else could love you? You seen your face? It is a miracle of Allah that I even love you. You should be grateful that I'm slapping you. Go pray 2 rak'at. Shukr now that I cursed you out. Because if anybody else was there, you wouldn't even be alive. You know, my greatest love for you is that I tolerate you. That's my love for you. So you know what we do? We use the word love. But actually the relationship in reality doesn't look like it has anything to do with love. If you describe what happens in that relationship, there's a lack of respect, there's a lack of trust, there's humiliation, there's sarcasm, there's anger, there's suspicion, there's all these negative things all the time. But we call it what? I love that though. I love that. I love one of those, like, not just between spouses, even between children. I'll have some parent come to me with their child, mashallah, can I have a minute? Yeah, sure, you can have 2 minutes. Sure. This is my son. He's not very good. But I love him. I love him, but he's not very good. Can you make him good? So, I know the mother means well, but you know what she just did? She humiliated her son. She humiliated him. And that's not going to help. He's going to, first of all, thanks a lot, lady, now he hates me too. So the first thing I do with a boy like that is, I am so sorry. I'm really sorry. I didn't do this. You know? But the point that I'm making is, these relationships that we have at home, they're supposed to be characterized by love. But unfortunately, they become about something else. And one of the other things they become about is possession and control. You become possessive over someone, you become controlling over someone, and you love them, you want to hug them, give them affection, so long as they're doing some things within your boundaries. And the moment they do something you don't like, now you need to make them feel guilty. So you have your own boundary of your halal and your haram. Do you understand what I'm saying? Allah has His boundary of what's haram. But in many relationships, the spouse creates a new boundary that has nothing to do with Allah's boundaries. They have their own boundaries. They say, I don't want you talking to your friend. I don't like that. I don't want you talking to your friend. I've been friends since like we were both in diapers. That's my best friend. No, if you love me, you won't talk to him. If you love me, you will never talk to him. And now you're like, your friend is calling you, texting you, I love my wife. I can't, you know. Or a husband says to the wife, I don't want you talking to your mother. I don't want you talking to your family. No, I forbid it. And then they try to Islamify it on top of that too. Allah has given me the authority to, no, He hasn't, bro. Yeah, you can't cut a family tie. You can't do it. Those are connections Allah made. وَيَقْطَعُونَ مَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ أَنْ يُوصَلَ وَيُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. You could be the husband, you could be the Pharaoh, you could be Donald Trump, I don't care who you are. You can't tell anybody to not connect with their parents. You can't do it. That's a relationship you don't own. That relationship Allah owns. But the point is the same. A pressure is being exerted over something that isn't wrong. It's not wrong. But because you are so loving, you're like, I don't want to hurt my wife's feelings, or I don't want to hurt my husband's feelings. So fine, I won't talk to my best friend anymore. Because I love her so much, I won't talk to my friend anymore. Because I love her so much, I'll stop playing basketball. Because I love her so much, I'll stop, looking happy. Control can come from the wife, control can come from the husband, control can come from father or children, a mother or children, it can come from siblings, it can come from anywhere. And this control is sometimes not control like I command you and you better obey. It's sometimes like in the face. It's like a non-spoken kind of control. Where are you going? Oh, my friend came from out of town, I was gonna pick him up from the airport. Go ahead. Have fun. I hope you enjoy yourself. No, you know what? When are you coming back? No, you know what? Don't even tell me. It's okay. Just, why do you even have to come home? Okay, just go. No, go. Why aren't you going? Go already. You don't care about me. And now, and some of you are not very smart. So when your wife says, go, go. You're like, mashallah, she's encouraging me. I should go. You're like, jazakallahu khairan. And you're like, bro, when she's saying go, she's telling you, step out and you will die. That's what she's saying. But you're not translating properly. There's a problem in tarjama. Right? So, when these kinds of boundaries are drawn, sometimes you're afraid of making somebody upset. Here's the common denominator. You have to think about your life, I have to think about my life. You're so afraid of making somebody upset that you start making things haram for yourself that Allah never made haram for you. You start confining yourself and you start putting pressure on yourself in all kinds of things that have nothing to, you shouldn't be feeling bad about it, because the only one that has the right to make you feel guilty is Allah when you violate His lines. And His limits are not just about what you owe Him. His limits define how we are good to others also. So long as you're obeying Allah, it is impossible that you are doing injustice to anyone else. But people that people that quote unquote love you sometimes can actually make you feel like even though you're actually doing nothing wrong, there's no one worse than you. No one's a bigger zalim than you. They can make you feel guilty and ashamed for doing absolutely nothing wrong. And the more loving and kind and caring you are, the more you will fall into this trap. The more kind you are, the more you will get stepped on. Right? Because if you're kind and you're like, I don't want to hurt your feelings. Hey, where do you want to go eat? Sometimes it's a test question. Hey, where do you want to go eat? Let's go to, Halal Joe's. I don't know. No, I don't want to go there. So you tell me where you want to. I don't want to go anywhere. It's okay. I don't want to go anywhere. You don't want to go anywhere? Yeah, because you never want to take me anywhere. I just said where you want to go. No, it's okay. It's fine. Guilting for nothing. Creating these kinds of negative sentiment. And you're just constantly worried about what? Making the other happy. Shoveling and filling in that hole that can't be filled. Right? It could come from your mom. It could come from your dad. It could come from your wife or your husband. It could come from anywhere. The Prophet ﷺ is in a situation where even a little bit of that is too dangerous. Even a little bit of that. Because the first thing, listen to this part carefully, the first thing that happens, and that will never happen for Rasulullah ﷺ, but it will happen for us. The first thing that happens is you take halal things and you make them haram for yourself. Right? Once you do that, you have handed over some control. Little bit, 5%. In a couple of years, it won't be 5%. It'll be 50%. In a couple of years from then, it'll be 100%. You are no longer Allah's slave. Emotionally, you're somebody else's slave. Even though you're doing sajda towards the Kaaba. Emotionally, you're somebody else. You're even feeling guilty coming into the masjid because somebody might make you feel guilty. In your heart, you're not feeling content that you're walking out. And even doing something that pleases Allah, you can't do it. Because you've created a kind of emotional, dependence on somebody else, and they're exerting that influence on you. And what's the final stage of that? The final stage of that is those loved ones can even convince you to do haram. The first stage is you take halal things and you make them haram. But if that goes on long enough, then eventually they have so much control that even haram things start becoming what? Halal, just to make them happy. Just to make them happy. It's a slippery slope. It's a slippery slope. So we have to have loving, caring, and open conversations in our homes about where the line is drawn. What is not wrong should not be considered wrong by anyone. What Allah has made halal means Allah considers it good. You don't get to say it's bad. I don't get to say it's bad. So let's take a pause here from the surah for a moment and let's talk about a reality that many of us experience in the ummah and the world. We are juggling two different things. We're juggling our religion, we have our religion, and then we have the society and the culture that we come from, and all of us are hybrid. We're partly American, partly Indian, partly Bangladeshi, partly Moroccan, partly Algerian, partly American, partly all of these things, right? And with social media, now we don't even know what parts we are. It's all confused, it's all mixed together. But in many of our cultures, there are practices that have nothing to do with our religion. In fact, some of them even go against our religion. They go against our religion. And we celebrate them in our cultures. And if somebody says, I don't want to do that, for example, I'll give you an example of the South Asian subcontinent. In the South Asian subcontinent, when even Muslims get married, it is not the boy's family that gives gifts. It is the girl's family that is supposed to give, sounds like mahr, but it's opposite of Sharia. It's reverse Sharia. And they can turn the girl's the proposal down because that we needed a Samsung fridge, not an LG fridge. They could do that, right? Because the pressure is on the girl's family to give, right? And it's flipped. And then what else happens in many cultures when it comes? One of the fundamental conditions of a marriage being valid is mahr, right? The mahr should be agreed on. They don't agree on a mahr. They don't even do it. And the day of the marriage, the poor guy just graduated from college. He just got his first job as an accountant, after being in debt from 4 years of school, which is bad accounting, by the way. And then he and then he's getting married. And then they say, oh, no, don't worry about the mahr, don't worry about the mahr. And the moment the nikah contract is being signed, the girl's family says, yeah, it's 200,000. And the kid's like, and then they say, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. It's just a number. It's just a number. Mahr, paying the mahr, وَآتُوا النِّسَاءَ صَدُقَاتِهِنَّ نِحْلَةً. happily, quickly, and freely should you give the money that's owed, and they sign off on it, and it's no big deal. There are generations of Muslims that have never, their grandparents now, they never gave the mahar. Their grandparents now. And you ask the grandma, did grandpa ever give mahar? No, they said they would. But you know, they're under a lot of pressure. And I'm just sitting there, what sharia is this? What hukum Allah is this? They take things that Allah has made mandatory and turn them into optional or not important. And then they take things that have nothing to do with our religion and they make them absolutely fard and wajib and all of it. It's a different kind of sharia. Nobody calls it sharia. Nobody calls it an alternative law, but it's more powerful and exerts more pressure than the law of Allah. That's the reality in which many Muslims live. So when the Prophet is told, لِمَا تُحَرِّمُ مَا أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ لَكَ تَبْتَغِي مَرْضَاتَ أَزْوَاجِكَ, you are trying to, it was a small issue. It was just a small issue. According to the narration, he would go stop at everybody's home and he started spending a couple extra minutes at one spouse's home where she gave him a kind of honey that tasted extra good and he liked it a little much. So it was a couple extra minutes at his house. The next spouse realized she's getting a couple less minutes, or this one's getting a couple more minutes. So she decided, she couldn't say it directly, so she just said, your breath smells a little, and the Prophet ﷺ felt so bad, because the only thing that could have had that smell is the honey. Okay, I won't eat that honey anymore. He didn't say from today on, this honey is haram. He didn't declare those words. He was considering her feelings because she doesn't like that smell. So he decides, but that wasn't really what was going on. And so Allah said, when you do that, if the Prophet did that, it would become a sunnah. And if it became a sunnah, then we would all want to be like the Prophet ﷺ, and we would all do that. In other words, when somebody says they don't like something, even though it's actually okay, we would have to bend and be like the Prophet ﷺ and change our own preferences, even though Allah did not make it haram. That would be a huge problem. So Allah Azza wa Jalla opened this door and made sure that we don't get to close it. لِمَا تُحَرِّمُ مَا أَحَلَّ اللَّهُ لَكَ تَبْتَغِي مَرْضَاتَ أَزْوَاجِكَ. I would argue here that the pleasing of the spouses is not limited to wives. It could be husbands, parents, children. In his life, the closest people are the spouses.